let's go ahead and look at 1.4. A couple things that are really important in this one. You need to remember what we said about what we learned about unit rates. Okay, so think about when I have unit rates, how I find one of my denominator. Keep that in mind. And second, make sure you keep in mind what we learned about dividing fractions from 1.3, because this is basically going to put it together. Okay, so go ahead and try your launch problem. Take a few minutes, talk about it. Remember that you should be in the habit of doing what a strong mathematician does, which is you're identifying key information. Okay, so when it says two clowns can get a call as they race the circus, we're going 10 miles per hour. Okay, so I'm going to underline that. We can't go any faster. The caller replies, "You better double your speed or you'll never make it." Okay. Show two different ways to write a speed that is twice as fast. Explain your reasoning. So really think about if I'm going 10 miles per hour, right? And I need to double that speed. What are two different ways to write a speed that is twice as fast? Okay, so take a few minutes, talk about that as a group. Now with a launch, the purpose of the launch is to get you thinking. So your answer may not end up being the same one that Realize gives, because it's just a launch problem. It's getting you thinking about what you know. So right now I see I have 10 miles per half hour. So that's telling me right away that I've got a rate, okay? I've got 10 miles, which is, think about whether that be the numerator or the denominator, and then the half hour. And now I'm trying to write one that is twice as fast. So take a few minutes. When your group all has something written and you've worked together to kind of talk through it, I'm going to go ahead and show you the Realize and answers and how they came up with that. Okay, so go ahead and pause me, and when you're ready, go ahead and press play. So when we look at the sample, keep in mind it says sample solutions, because there's really lots of different ways that you could solve this. So one way would just be simply to say, well, if they went 10 miles per hour and it's twice as fast, it could be 20 miles per half hour, which is probably the first one you came up with, right? Because if I'm going 10 miles per, and it's mi because m is meters, okay, per hour, and I want to go twice as fast, that'd be 2 over 1, so I'm going 20 miles per half hour, okay? I still want to keep it as that half hour, okay? Or I could look at it a different way. If I went 20 miles per half hour, right? And I want to go faster than the original 10 miles per half hour, I could also cut my time in half. So half of a half, so if I take a half and I'm dividing it by 2. Okay, so if I have half an hour and I divide it by 2, that means, and I still go 10 miles per hour, 10 miles per half hour, and I double it, that means I'd go 10 miles in half the amount of time. So I have 1/2 divided by 2. Now you might be going, I don't remember how to divide fractions, or I may never have divided fractions. Let's look at how we do that. This is technically the same as 1/2 divided by 2 over 1, okay, right? From last time we talked about that. But I can't just divide across. I am going to keep the 1/2 the same. I'm going to use the opposite operation of division, which is multiplication. And I'm going to take the reciprocal. Remember from our prior lesson that the reciprocal is when I simply flip that fraction. So instead of 2 over 1, it'd be 1/2. 1 times 1 is 1. 2 times 2 is 4, which you probably knew already that that's a quarter of an hour, 15 minutes, right? 30 minutes would be half hour, 15 minutes would be quarter hour, excuse me. So 10 miles per quarter hour would also be going twice as fast, because you're traveling the same amount of distance but in half the time, okay? So those are just some things to think about going into the questions. Now as we work through, there are going to be parts that I want you to watch it in Realize, but then many of them I will also then go in and explain again to make sure you have it. So let's go ahead and look at your key concepts. So if you have not written your full answers in Launch, or if you were stuck, make sure you really look at these sample solutions and what I added in there and add that to yours before you move on. If you're ready to move on, let's go ahead and continue. So our key concept, make sure to fill out your notes. Recall that when a unit rate is written as a fraction, okay, so whenever I have a unit rate, the denominator is 1 unit. So if that's as simple as if I said I ate 6 cookies in 2 minutes, that sounds yummy. That means if I'm finding the unit rate, I wanted this to be 1, so I divide by 2. Whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top, leaving me with 2 minutes divided by 2 equals 1 minute and 3 cookies. So I ate 3 cookies per minute. Now if I wanted to know how much time per cookie, then I would flip it. So say I say how many minutes per cookie. Now I've got my 6 here, right? And now I'm starting to get back into what we looked at, which is that it's not always nice, pretty whole numbers. So in this case, for 1 cookie, 2 divided by 6 is the same as 2 over 6, okay? Which is the same as, if I divide those down, equals 1 over 3 minutes. So that means it takes me 1/3 of a minute to eat 1 cookie. Fast cookie. Okay, so now let's go into what Digits Realize is showing, which is when we, instead of having like in this example, the 6 cookies, 2 minutes, okay, now we're using fractions. But it's no different. It's just taking what we learned about unit rates and we're applying it to fractions, okay, which is 1, 3, and 1, 2 together. So it says recall that it's per 1 unit, okay? So my example that it gives us is suppose you walk 3/2 minutes and 3/4 hours, and I want to know how much would I walk in 1 hour, right? So I take the 3/2 and I divide it by 3/4 hours because I want per hour, per 1 hour. Just like in the past with unit rates with nice whole numbers, I divide by the denominator. So if I divide 3/4 divided by 3/4, that's going to give me 1, and I'm going to show you why here in a minute. Okay, so I'm going to divide both the top and the bottom by this bottom fraction. Now in each one of these, I want you to press solution and look at what, watch the whole thing, the whole video for the key concept, but you might need additional help. So go ahead first, press play, so when you go into Realize, you're going to see that here's the key concept, okay? And you're going to press play like this. And I want you to watch theirs first because I want to get you in the habit where you're trying to figure out their thought process. When you're done with that, go ahead and unpause my video so that you can see, make sure that you understood all the parts. Because sometimes they go a little faster, then I'm going to, and then I'm also going to, sorry, it's going to play in my background because it doesn't stop. So once you, I'm going to change that, and I'm sorry, you probably hear my kids in the background too. They just got done watching something, okay? So when I look here, I'm going to show you what Digits did. So pause, watch what Digits did first, and then go ahead and reinforce what you saw with my video, okay? I want you to see it multiple times. So when you're done watching theirs, go ahead and unpause. I'm going to go ahead and continue, but you should have watched Realize before you hear me start explaining it. Okay, so I have 3/2 divided by 3/4. That means my new one is 3/2 divided by 3/4, okay, which means on the bottom I have 3/4 divided by 3/4. Now let's talk a little bit, before I show you that one, about dividing fractions. Thank you. So if I look at multiplying fractions, it's pretty simple. If I have 2/4 times 1/2, I multiply across, giving me 2/8, right? 2 times 1 is 2, 4 times 2 is 8. Remember though, I showed you something in the last lesson where I can cross cancel. I can find a common factor between 2 and 2, which happens to be 2. So 2 divided by 2 is 1. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 1 times 1 is 1. 4 times 1 is 4. So my answer would be 1/4. Notice I would get 2/8. If I did it the other way, and then I could have divided out the 2. Okay, essentially I'm finding the solution earlier. Okay, I'm not having to divide out at the end. Okay, now let's look at this one. 2/4 divided by 2/1. Okay, so in the launch, I introduced you to that I would do 2/4 stays the same. The first one always stays the same. I do the opposite of division, which is multiplication, and now I flip and find the reciprocal because I'm multiplying, which is the opposite operation of division. So now I get 2/4 times 1/2. Well, that's easy. That means that I'm going to do this, okay, get that to 1, leaving me with 1/4. So notice that 2/4 times 1/2 is the same as 2/4 divided by 2/1. Okay, because all I've done is I have the opposite operation and the reciprocal. So let's look really quickly at this one. So it says 1/3 divided by 2/3. I can't just divide across. I need to do 1/3 times the reciprocal, 3/2. I can cross cancel here. I can only cross cancel here with multiplication. Divide them both by 3. So the answer to 1/3 divided by 2/3 is actually equal to 1/2. Okay, that is going to be really important for you to be able to solve this problem here. Okay, so now I've got 3/4. So I'm going to move this problem, both of these problems right here. I'm just going to move this over here so I have more space. So 3/2 times 4/3 is the same as 3/2 divided by 3/4 is going to be my top. I like to cross cancel. It makes it easier. So I've got 1 times 4 is 4. 2 times 2 is 2. Giving me 4/2, which I could cross cancel again, right? Which would actually give me 2/1. If I didn't cross cancel, I would have ended up with 4/2. Well, 4 divided by 2 is still equal to 2. 2 divided by 1 is 2. So this is 2. Now let me show you why when you divide by the denominator by the same number, why it equals 1. So I'm going to change it to multiplication. 4/3 is the reciprocal. 4 divided by 4 is 1. 3 divided by 3 is 1 and 1. So that equals 1. So my answer to this problem is 2 miles per 1 hour. Okay, I don't cancel out any of those because mile and hour are different units. Therefore, I'm done. So the unit rate for this would be 2 miles per 1 hour. So I'm always, same thing, I'm dividing by the denominator. Keep that in mind. Okay, whenever I divide by a fraction, I change the division to multiplication and I do the reciprocal, which is just where I flip it. Feel free, as you're trying next problems, to try and go back and look at the notes as needed that I've written in. But I want you in the habit of writing everything that I do so that when you go to do it on your own, you're going through the process correctly. Okay, so for this one, here's what I'd like you to do. I'd like you to go ahead and try and set up the problem. When you and your group think that you have set it up correctly, you've underlined key information and you have it set up, okay, then you're going to press play on the video again, and then you should be at the same spot I am, okay? So set it up and then unpause me. Okay, did you set it up correctly? You should have written 3/4 cups of dry milk powder. Okay, 2, notice I circled 2 so I can see where the where my ratio is going to be built around, and 6 dog biscuits. So that'd be 3/4 cups over 6, I just abbreviated dog biscuits at DB. How many cups of milk powder do I need per dog biscuit? Per dog biscuit means that dog biscuit is going to be my unit rate, okay? So now I go like this, I go like this, and I divide by 6, okay? Well, you're probably thinking right now, oh, that's easy. That's 1 dog biscuit. Oh, look, 3/4 divided by 6. That's going to be pretty simple. But then your warning bells should go off going, wait a minute, I'm dividing a fraction. So that means I have to think, okay? I have to rewrite the 6 as 6 over 1. Then I'm still not done. So I'm going to go like this, equals, the 3/4 stays the same. I'm multiplying, which is the opposite of division, okay? They work together. And if I'm doing the opposite of division, multiplication, I need to flip and do the reciprocal. Okay, and I'm still over 1 dog biscuit. Now, as a good mathematician, I know, I can cross cancel, right? So I'm looking only diagonally. 3 and 6, I can divide them both by 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 6 divided by 3 is 2. 1 times 1 is 1. 4 times 2 is 8. So 1 cup per each dog biscuit. So if I wanted to make my dog its own dog biscuits, I usually just buy them from Petco because it's a little faster. Okay, but if I wanted to, for 1 dog biscuit, I'm going to need 1/8 cup dry milk powder. Now if you've seen me do it, now go ahead and watch the Realize do it through the program so that you're seeing it twice. Okay, once you've watched that one, I want you to go ahead. I want you to try and set this up. Then I want you to go ahead, once you have set it up, I want you to watch the Realize one. Okay, so first, set it up. Second, actually I want you to try and solve it as a group. See if you can get it. 3, watch the Realize version, and then you're going to watch mine. Okay, because just like we talk about in second step, those neurons that need to continue to connect, the more you see something, the better you're going to understand it. So first, underline, set it up. Second, try and solve it. Third, watch the Realize version of how they do it. And then fourth, watch mine for reinforcement. Okay, go ahead and do those steps. When you've tried it and you've done the Realize version, please press play on mine. Okay, now let's look through. So once again, you should have already tried it on your own. You should have done it on Realize. Now you're going to see my work. Okay, so 7-8 pounds of food in 4 meals. So I underlined what was important. How much food does your dog eat per meal? So since it's per meal, we want meal on the bottom. Okay, notice I'm writing in my unit. I'm kind of abbreviating a little bit, but I want you to make sure you're getting in the habit of doing that. Okay. So now I have 4 meals on the bottom, so I divide by 4. So 4 divided by 4 equals 1. So that part's easy. Got that. Now I've got 7/8 divided by 4. Now I'm going to instantly, because I know I'm dividing fractions, I want to go ahead and change that to 4 over 1, because 4 over 1 is the same as 4, because 4 divided by 1 is 4. Now I put my equal sign again. Notice I'm not taking shortcuts. Taking shortcuts results in me missing a step and getting confused. So I have 7/8 times, okay, that means I have to flip the 4 over 1 to be 1 over 4. I look this way, 7 and 4, there's nothing to cross cancel, the 8 and the 1, nothing to cross cancel. So I just multiply cross, 7 times 1 is 7, 8 times 4 is 32. Okay, so that means I have 7 32nd pound of food per 1 meal. LB stands for pound. Okay, so my answer is 7 32nds pounds of food per meal. Okay, how'd you do? Because there's multiple got it's on this one because this is a little tricky. Okay, so at this point, you'll look at these two and notice they're very similar. You might go, wait a minute, I just did that one. 7-8 pounds of food in 4 meals. How many meals will it take your dog to eat 1 pound of food? So now I want per pound. So what does that mean? Okay, set up the problem and then go ahead and just set up and then unpause me. Okay. All right, so if you had already set it up, you would notice it says per pound. This time it's slightly different. This is per meal. This one is per pound. So this time I've got 4 meals per pound. So I've got 7-8 pounds. Now, same thing, I want you to watch it and Realize first. Once you've watched it and Realize, go ahead and check your answer and realize, then watch mine, okay? So it's going to be a little bit, and then unpause me so that I can see how you did, okay? Okay, so in this one, it's just like this. Don't overthink it. The only difference is now I have 7/8 pounds. I have the fraction in the denominator. So I'm going to go like this, and I'm going to go like this, okay? Oops, divided by, excuse me. So, sorry, it looks like plus. Now when I go here, I've got 7/8 divided by 7/8 pounds. I can show that work and show 7/8 times 8/7. But we know that every time I divide by the same number, I'm always going to get 1. Okay, it's the same as 4 divided by 4 equals 1. 5 divided by 5 equals 1. Whenever I divide a number by itself, and that's the same with fractions, it's always going to equal 1. Okay, so when I look, when I look at this one, that's going to give me 1 pound. Okay, now I've got 4 divided by 7/8. Okay, so what am I going to do? I'm going to take, the 4, sorry, and I'm going to multiply that times 8/7. 4 is same as 4/1, and I leave the 1 pound. There's nothing I can cross cancel, so I have 32/7 meals, right? And then 1 pound per pound. Now I can divide that out to make more sense than 32/7 meals. It's like, what does that mean? So remember that a fraction is simply a division problem. So if I have something like 8/4, that's the same as 8 divided by 4, which just would equal 2, right? Well, it's not different with a fraction, but in this case, I have 32/7. Okay, so when I have 32/7, the number on the top always goes under the bridge. So I have 32 divided by 7. 7 times 4 will get me to 32 without going over. 4 times 7 is 28. Okay, now I go like this. That gives me 4. I'm going to put a decimal point and drop. Or I can say 4 4/7. Okay, 4 left over. And they're being cut into 7th, 4 4/7 meals, or I can continue to divide. So I'm just showing you multiple things. These are from the 6th grade Common Core, right? And that gives me 28, which still goes like this, right? 4, I put a decimal, bring it down. 7 times 5 will get me as close without going over as 35. Okay, 7 times 7 is 49. Okay, so I've got about 4.57, 4 57/100 meals. Okay, so there's multiple ways that I can represent those. So at this point, what I want you to do is I want you to continue and realize, okay, so you've done the got it's or multiple got it's. Now you're ready to try and realize these. I want you to try each one of these. When you get done with each one of those, think it through. There's a solution button, okay? You're going to check your work, see where maybe your errors are, and then I will walk you through the solutions to make sure that you have it. But at this point, it's the same thing. You just have multiple fractions, okay? So when I'm starting to get multiple fractions, like I'll show you on these, okay, you just keep multiplying and then you just keep finding the reciprocal. Okay, so let's start with A. So you probably set it up, so when you look at A, is 1/2 divided by 1/4 hours, or half a mile per hour, MI is mile. And then I see that hours is on the bottom, it's in my denominator, so divide by 1/4. 1/4, easy peasy. I've got 1/4 divided by 1/4 equals 1 hour. Okay, 1/2 divided by 1/4. Now I'm going to keep going. Okay, and now I'm trying to show you all the other parts, but that's okay. 1/2 divided by 1/4 is the same as 1/2. Now what I don't like about digits, I want you to get in the habit of writing this as 4 over 1, okay? So now I've got this, right? So these will cancel, giving me 2 and 1. So when I do that, that's why this way looks a little confusing. Now I've got 2 over 1. So 2 over 1. Okay? That means that I have 2 miles per 1 hour. Therefore, that's 2 miles per hour. That sign means per. So the unit rate is 2 miles per hour. Okay? So don't overthink. Do the same thing. Now, the problem is sometimes you're going to have a number that is not as pretty, and we're going to look at that next. So go ahead as a group, try B, C, and D, and when you're done with, or get stuck, why don't you go ahead and do B, then press realize, see the solution, but don't press the solution until you've tried it, okay? And if you feel like, man, I'm getting stuck, go ahead and watch my video. But right now, pause me and do B. Okay, so now let's look at B. We divide both sides by 1/5, the numerator and the denominator, because I want the denominator to be per second. So it's 7/10 feet per 1/5 of a second. If I divide by 1/5, that gets me to 1. 7/10 divided by 1/5. Now I'm going to do this, but once again, this looks a little confusing. This is the same as 5 over 1. Okay, that might make it a little easier. Now, if I've got 5 and I have 10, I can divide both of those by 5, so that gives me 1. 7 times 1 is 7, 2 times 1 is 2. So 7/2 of a foot, 7 divided by 2 feet, is per 1 second. I can leave that as 7/2 feet per second, or I could say that's 3.5 feet per second. Because, and that's what you're going to be looking at with C and D. Oh, goodness me. Sorry, I put a little thing on there. 7 divided by 2 is 3.5. Okay, so that's another way to write it. 3.5 feet per second. In this case, I want you to get in the habit at times in this next section to put that line, which means per, and then second. Now, as you're trying C and D, I want you to do them both together as a group. I want you to think about if you can do what I did with that 3.5, right? And you can kind of change it up a little bit to say this amount per minute, this many meters per minute, this many kilometers per minute, okay? Take a few minutes, go ahead and do that. Then you'll pull up the solution, and then I'll walk you through it. So pause me and do C and D. Okay, so now let's go ahead and look at C and D. Same process, okay? So really look at it. I'm dividing, I'm flipping, so I have 4/5 divided by 2/3, changing division to multiplication, 3/2. Notice there's this constant cross-canceling because that just makes life easier, the better you can be at cross-canceling. And if you're really struggling with cross-canceling, which is this process here, where it says, which is right here, this whole process, we just really need to have a conversation about that because that is going to make a lot of reducing fractions easier. So now I divided 4 and 2, both divided by 2, leaving me with 6 over 5. Now I'm going through this a little quicker, so feel free and pause it and check it out and look at it closer. It gives me per 1 minute, but I want to know per minute. So I have 6/5, which is an improper fraction, so I want to change that to a mixed number, so that I know the unit rate, how many kilometers. We don't usually say 6/5 kilometers. I want to know how many kilometers per minute, or kilometers, whichever way you like to say it. So 6 goes under the bridge. Okay, so right now I'm going to put 6 under the bridge and 5. 5 times 1 will get me as close to 6 without going over. That leaves me with 1 left over. The 1 becomes my numerator. My denominator I'm still cutting up into fifths, so it's still 1 and 1/5. Okay, so when I look at 6/5, that's the same as 1 and 1/5. Because keep in mind, if I cut these into fifths, okay, and I have 6/5, that means I have this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have 1 whole 1 and 1/5 left over. So 6/5 is equal to 1 1/5. That's why that works. So my unit rate is 1 1/5 kilometers per minute. Let's go ahead and look at D. Now same thing, I'm dividing by 5, 6, which will always, when I divide a number by itself, I always end up with 1. I take this and I go here. Notice I'm writing step by step. I'm going to do times 6/5 because I'm doing the opposite of division is multiplication, and then I'm doing the reciprocal. I look for cross canceling. There's multiple opportunities to cross cancel here. Sorry, oh my goodness, locked in. And so then once I've done that, I end up with 9/2. Okay, now I could multiply this out and get 15 times 6 would be 90/20, and divide them both by 10. But we did cross canceling. I want you to be in the habit of that. Now I divide that down. This would be 4, 8, 1, 4 1/2 meters per minute. And that's where that answer comes from, okay? So at this point, go ahead and try the got it problem. When you're done with the got it problem, you're going to go ahead. So you're here, you're in that section, excuse me. You are right here, and you're going to go ahead. Sometimes it's hard for me to click it. There it is. You're going to go here, give you your answer choices, and then it's going to give the solution. I want you to go ahead, try it, and then go ahead and look at the solution, and then see if you understand that part. And as I'm coming around, make sure if you don't have it, I should expect after you have your work, you're looking at the solution and you're modifying your work in order for it to make sense on your notes. Because when I come around, I'm chatting with you, I'm going to want to see how you solved it and where your issue may have been. And so you're going to look at that solution and make sure the way you wrote it matches that solution. If you're not doing the cross-canceling, then I should see the step of you dividing your answer by the greatest common factor in order to find the lowest terms of that fraction. Okay, good luck. And then check the realize, and then when you're done with that one, and you've checked your answer, I'm going to be going ahead to 1-4 part 3, okay, which is going to be kind of connecting it in the same way that we did with unit prices, like which is the better price, how can I apply these principles to some of the ways that they might be used, okay? So go ahead and work on that and then unpause me. Okay, so now you've got this. When you go into Realize, you're going to notice that it has this. You're like, where did you get that information, Ms. Brandon? Other than it's in your notes. You would press this little thing right here. You watch the little car zoom around, zoom, zoom, zoom. Once the little car has gotten done zooming, it's going to pop up with the same information. Notice he stops, okay? And you'll see why here in a second. Zoom, zoom, zoom. And now you've gotten the same information that I have on my screen. Okay, so you're running a fuel economy study. So you're studying to see which car is going to be using their gasoline more effectively. So it says which car can travel the greater distance on 1 gallon. So you should think, I want per gallon, which means my unit rate is per gallon, so I want gallon on the bottom. Okay. At this point, go ahead and set it up. Go ahead and solve and see whether you can come up with which car is getting better gas mileage per gallon of gasoline, almost said water. Okay, go ahead. Then after your group has tried it, see if you can get it. It should be messy. You should have lots of work on your paper. Then go ahead and unpause and see how I did it, okay? And how did you? So I'm going to kind of walk with through Realize, okay? Go ahead and pause me. All right, so now that you're on pause, the first thing I need to do is I need to find the unit rate of miles per gallon, okay? So you should have written it like this, right? Now all of a sudden you're going to be like, woo, those are some big numbers. Okay, so I've got this right here. So I've got 92/5 miles per 4/5 of a gallon, okay? So notice that's just coming from here. And you're like, where did you get that weird number? Remember from the prior lesson, whenever I have a mixed number, which if you didn't do this and you go back and restart it, whenever I have a mixed number, I have to change it into an improper. So 18 times 5, 0, 4, 90. 90 plus 2 gives me 92, seriously, 92 over 5 miles. I'm going to do the same thing to this side because I have another mixed number. 28 times 2 plus 1. Okay, so 28 times 2, 6, carry the 1, 56 plus 1, giving me 57. So that's where those came from. So if you didn't have that part, please go ahead, pause it again, and then retry the problem. Okay, if you were stuck and you weren't sure where to go, so you looked, there you go. Now go ahead and pause. And then unpause me when you're ready. Okay, so now I've got this. Okay, so now I'm dividing just like I was doing before. I'm multiplying. This is where, like I said, life is going to be easier, just so much easier, if you cross cancel. So I've got 5 and 5. Those can divide to 1 and 1. Now, if I didn't realize that 92 is divisible by 4, which is totally fine, you might end up with 92 divided by 4 at the end rather than 23 divided by 1. So if you didn't know that, and you had 92 over 4, you would simply divide 92 divided by 4 to get it to a mixed number, right? And then you would realize, doing kind of quick that. If that's something you and I need to work on, just let me know, like the dividing of the fraction. Sorry, my son's trying to do tricks with our dog. And so that leaves, then I'd see, oh, it's 23. So it's 23 miles per 1 gallon. Okay, now I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. I'm doing 5/4. So I'm going to multiply by 4/5. Notice, once again, I'm going to do cross canceling. Cross canceling is a big friendly thing when you are multiplying fractions. It's going to be 114 over 5. So then I don't want to leave the final answer into, I keep putting my finger over that, sorry, into an improper fraction. So I'm going to change it to a mixed number, and then that's going to get me here. Now, if you're still struggling with how to do that part, you don't remember mixed numbers and improper, we can work on that as well. You just need to let me know. So then I see 22 and 4/5 is less than 23 miles per gallon. Therefore, car B is getting getting worse gas mileage, because here I'm getting 23 miles per gallon, but car B is only getting 22 and 4/5. So car A is getting better gas mileage. It's going further on a tank of gas. So if I can go 10 miles on one tank versus per gallon, excuse me, then versus 5 miles per gallon, 10 miles is a better car. Okay, so go ahead. Now you're trying to change mixed number to improper. So change mixed number to improper and divide it. Okay, that should give you that last one. So try that one together, see how you're doing. Make sure you're working together to help you. Then once you think you have it, it's going to show you the answer. Okay, so press show answer when you're done. When you have that done, check your work. Make sure your work is accurate and it matches that in Realize, but you should not be pressing show answer until, yes, you've got it. You think you have the answer right. You've all talked it through. Just remember, change this right here, this 3/2 and this 1 2/5 when you write it into an improper fraction, and then you should be able to solve it. Okay, when you're all done with that one and you've checked your answer, go ahead and try the close and check, and then your homework is going to be 1-4. There is a spot, keep in mind, in your sheet in your booklet where you can do your notes. Okay, so make sure, I'll expect to see lots of notes. This is not something you can shortcut and try and plug into a calculator. It's going to end up making it harder, and you're going to end up making more mistakes. Okay, and I'll be coming and checking on you a lot, but let me know. Just don't forget to pause and unpause. You can rewind as well, because that's what a good learner does. When they don't understand something, they rewatch. Sorry, I've all of a sudden been invaded by my children. Hello, say hello to everyone. Just put your head in.
Hi.
There's Jamie. Anyone else want to say hi in my video before I pause it?
Hi.
That's James.
Hi.
And here's Ruby. Ruby, say hi.
Hi.
They can't see you. Okay, pop your head up. There's Ruby. All right, good luck on the homework.